Good afternoon, folks. As you can see, it's the Two Davies, -1 Davy. He should be arriving any moment soon, and the minute he gets into the green room, I'll let him into the studio. Well, what a week it's been. Huh? Absolutely mental. But once David comes in, we'll get on with it. I'll give you guys a chance to get on board. We'll get the FB comments up.
Also, how the hypocrisy of the UK government, which is all about sovereignty.
Sorry about that, as you know, I'm always scanning the news. So as you can hear, I've got political programmes going on. So let's get the Facebook comments up. So, as you know, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff. Anyway, David should be here shortly, folks. As I say, once he comes into the green room, I'll let him in. Got quite a lot to cover. We've got the Bank of England telling us we're going to be poorer, or telling us just to accept being poorer. We've got Sunak's amendment to the Public Order Act. Pretty terrifying, actually. We've got Sir Keir sounding very much like Margaret Thatcher, but we got a wee bit of that and all when David shows up. And of course, we have the Tory party conference, and Rishi Sunak telling us that we've got devolution orang all these years, and what he's going to do to undermine it. And then we'll get to big ears and the putting of a hat on his head that costed 250 million to the public purse when the guy's personal wealth's 1.9 billion. Wow. So, as I say, I'm just waiting the other David popping into the green room. As if he can find his way in. He had something else today and forgot to say. So as I say, he should be in any minute, I hope. At least he said he'd be in any minute. Anyway, let's start off with Chief Economist at the Bank of England, shall we? Hugh Pill, the guy's name is. And he's given an interview in America. Right? At one of the mad institutes, probably a right-wing think tank. That's generally how these things work. And they get bunged a few quid for going to them. Anyway, he tells them that the people of the UK better just accept being poorer. And that in order to stop this rampant inflation, the plebs have not to ask for pay rises, and company owners have to pass on the increased costs of production due to the price of energy and materials. Now we've left the EU. Let's think about that. First, we'll get Governor of the Bank of England. We'll get the Chief Economist at the Bank of England telling us to suck it up, buttercups. The people of England have voted to make these all poorer. So that's it. Get used to it. Accept being poorer. He's also telling businesses, just shut your bloody doors. When you think about it. That's the Chief Economist, hey? Just shut your bloody doors. You've not to pass on the increased energy costs, making your production unsustainable. You've not to pass on the increased cost of importing raw materials because we left the EU, says the Chief Economist at the Bank of England. Just shut your doors. The game's a bogey. That's what Mr. Pill was telling the Americans. He was telling the Americans that the UK is not a place to invest in. That's what he was telling the Americans. He was telling our friends over the water, don't bother putting your money into the UK. There's nothing there to be made. And his speech in his chat with this guy, he makes it quite clear that we have all to accept the fact that, England and Wales actually voted for us all to be poorer with Brexit. And he's telling company owners, don't increase your prices in line with increased cost of your manufacturing due to energy and material import costs. So basically he's telling everybody that I'm waiting on Robert, I'm waiting on David coming in. Basically he's telling everybody the game's a bogey. And he's telling us to accept being poorer and business owners to suck up the costs to try and lower inflation. Bank of England's only got one job in our economy, and that is to keep inflation at 2.2% or something that's supposed to be targeted at. That's the one job the Bank of England's got. Ensuring the flow of money doesn't affect the value of money. Basically keeping inflation balanced. But as we know, since the banking crash, the Bank of England has been, the printing press has never went off. Everybody talks about the 400 billion is the UK public purse, the cost of the pandemic. 58 billion it was stole by the Tory party, but that doesn't matter. 400 billion. Nobody's talking about the 500 billion that was printed in the form of quantitative easing by the Bank of England and given to big companies like JCB. To ensure that they stay afloat, apparently. But these big corporations already had plenty of money. They had plenty of money stashed for the first round of quantitative easing in 2008. So, mental. There you go, first story. There's Mr. Milligan in the green room, so we'll let him in. Hi, David. Nice to show up, dear boy.
I'm certainly noticed it.
Aye. What you going to burn your arse in the candle?
I was driving like a maniac to get here. There we go.
Aye, very good. Well done. Welcome on. Anyway, we've just spoken about the chief economist at the Bank of England, Hugh Pill's speech that he gave in America about making us all poor. We should just accept being poorer, and business owners have not to pass on increased costs of materials and energy. In other words, he just tell Americans that the UK is shut for business.
Well, you see, the thing is, the way I look at this is that if we become independent, his speech to the English is absolutely perfectly true.
Yep.
They are poor, right? They just don't know it yet, right? Because when we go, we'll obviously take our wealth and resources with us.
Which is quite interesting, David, because the Financial Times yesterday, I think it was it this morning, I was reading it, ran an article on the boom in the luxury goods industry. Apparently people are not accepting that they're worse off.
No, it's just that the people that are extremely rich have gotten richer, and they're the ones that are spending money on the luxury goods.
Yes, we do. I was heading in that direction. You just sort of shortcutted it there, didn't you? Because what we can say is that since 2008, and up to and including the pandemic, the people have suffered austerity.
Mm-hmm.
And disaster capitalists like Jacob Rees-Mogg and the elites here in the UK have got richer and richer.
Well, you know, we talked about the plan, and we talked about the fact that the plan was working, and it has worked, right?
Aye.
And the people of Scotland now have absolutely no choice. It doesn't matter whether they were a unionist or whether they were pro-yes. They have no choice but to get Scotland adrift from Westminster.
Very true. Now, I read out the itinerary for the show, David, before you come on, but now that you're almost sort of, I've just spoken about the Bank of England. The next one up is going to be the Tory party conference here, and then we'll go on to Starmer. We'll get back to Sunak and the amendments to the Public Order Bill.
You are listening to this, that's right? Okay.
Amendment to the Public Order Bill, and then which basically, we'll get there. This one's a mind blower, by the way.
Trust me, he says. Trust me. Right, okay.
Well, I've read the bloody thing, all right. And then we'll move on to big ears.
I'm going, we get it.
Right, so we're on to the second subject. The Tory party conference in Glasgow and Mr. Sunak's 7-minute speech.
Yeah, that was a really big affair, wasn't it? Massive.
220 of them in the place.
Right.
35 of them were press pack.
I didn't think there was that many Tories in Scotland. I didn't.
was very well impressed. Saying that, the age of some of them. And that was just the press pack. Do you imagine that? They sell 220 tickets. About 150 people actually showed up with enough brass neck to walk into the place in the middle of Glasgow. The other thing is, nobody knew it was in bloody Glasgow, otherwise, the score, we'd have been out there in the millions. Sorry, millions, no millions, obviously. But, mental. The last time they held the Tory party conference in Glasgow, we knew about it. We Sarah Jane get her arse out with 2 yes stickers on it. It went to remind us the Tories are full of pearls. Put it away, you're entertaining them, Jane. Sarah Jane. We all boying into the conference hall nearly had a heart attack when I looked on. A pensioners out. So, the BBC described it as a Sunak addressing a large crowd in Glasgow at the Tory party conference. And then we see the pictures for the rear of the auditorium. The auditorium holds 600 or 700 people, and there's only the front 2 or 3 rows. And
from what I read was it had nearly 200 seated and a further 100 stood. If you wanted to fill the hall, right? In the picture I saw, all the seats weren't taken.
Most of them were empty, the picture I saw. As I say, but apparently the BBC described it as Sunak addressing a packed Conservative Party conference. Well, I suppose for the Conservatives that was packed. 150 people and 30 press pack.
Yeah.
Now we know there's 30 press pack because we both for the National after Sunak's speech, and when the press wanted to speak to Sunak and they tried to dodge him, we both for the National went live on social media and let us all know that Sunak was hiding. And Sarah says to me at the time, "Is there a fridge there? Check the fridge."
I seem to remember there was a previous conference, SNP conference that took place in the main part of the building, right? And that particular hall was used as an overflow. They put a large TV screen in it, so we could watch the conference if you couldn't get into the main hall. So there you go.
Hey, now let's get into the substance of his speech. Right. Now, I will talk about Starmer's when we get to Starmer, but at this point we're talking about Sunak.
Did he do Pythagoras? I really would like a speech on Pythagoras.
No, he didn't. He stood there and told us we've got devolution wrong for the last 23 years.
I thought he was doing one of his maths classes.
No, bloody maths class. He doesn't need, he couldn't. Anyway, the amount of money he's got, he couldn't it. Anyway, as I say, he comes up and he tells us that we've got devolution wrong. The last 20 odd years in Scotland, that's all wrong.
Yep.
And he tells us how they've got it right by interfering in devolved areas and funding directly in devolved areas. Apparently, that's our 2 governments. That lovely hangy crash phrase. He disappeared again. He's not just showed up.
Just close the door.
Anyway, there he is telling us that we've got it all wrong and he's going to fix it.
Yep.
And he's going to fix it by passing the Scottish Parliament.
The best way you could fix it is issue an Article 30, Section 30 order, and then that would take it away entirely. Scotland would no longer have a devolved government. See,
the people need to take it
how logical and mathematical that was. If you take away the devolved government, then you replace it with an independent government, then he's not got any more problems with it.
That's very true. He's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So anyways, up here telling us we've got it all wrong, and him bypassing the 1998 Scotland Act and bypassing the Scottish Parliament and further funding direct to councils and things like that. That's bringing closer government No, that's centralised government in London undermining the Scotland Act, bypassing the Scotland Act.
Yeah.
When councils are fully devolved, any funding that's supposed to go to councils should come into any funding that's for devolved areas in the budget. That's for the Scottish Government to decide where it gets spent.
In actual fact, what you're saying is that the Treaty of Union is broken beyond economic repair. And that means...
That was done in 1998 with the vandalism, which is...
because of what has been done and what's been done to the Scottish people, right? And the fact that this was a voluntary union, which it no longer is, you're saying that the Treaty of Union is broken beyond economic repair, and therefore we should just be going to Westminster and saying, right, guys, time to negotiate, we're off. Because we still could. Our MPs could still say, right, we're independent, because they have the majority right now.
Yep, but they didn't run a manifesto for it, David, and we live in a democracy. That's one of the problems. You see, Whom's Yusuf holds the power in his hands right now to dissolve the union.
But the thing is, they're not playing democracy. So therefore, why should we play democracy if that comes to it?
Well, as I say, we've decided that we live in a democracy.
Yeah,
now, right now, Whom's Yusuf has the power in his hands and has had. And so did Nicola Sturgeon, and so did Alex Salmond, have the power in their hands to dissolve the union. It's something called the royal prerogative.
Yeah, sorry.
But because we live in a democracy, they need a democratic mandate for the people to exercise it.
Yeah, well,
they're not playing the game, which takes us to oppression.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's not just the oppression we see here is absolutely nothing compared to what's going on down that road.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Mr. Sunak again and his amendment to the Public Order Act, which empowers police to actually stop a demonstration from going ahead prior to it starting, and it also introduces to the Public Order Act something called a thought crime.
Yeah. I watched a really interesting documentary on Al Jazeera the other day there, and it was not Azerbaijan, this next door neighbour, what do they call it again? The Republic of, I forget, it'll come to me. Somebody will tell me up on the feed here a bit. Anyway, they were talking about to overthrow the president that was taking place right then. The people had to actually come out, and they came out in their hundreds of thousands, right? They filled what they call Republic Square, and you want to see the overhead of this Republic Square. It's massive, absolutely massive. And it looked like there was 1 million people, but there wasn't. There was a few 100,000, right? But the police started attacking them. The president they were trying to get rid of told the police to start firing on the crowd, which they did. And what the opposing bloke did was he told the people, right, what you do is set up your protest, and when the police turn up, run away and keep running away, but keep on setting up protests to the point where they cannot handle it, because there's too many of you and there's too few of them. And that, me, I thought that was really a clever move. It allowed the protest to be peaceful, even though the police weren't being peaceful, and it worked. It ended up where the president handed in his notes. Simple as that.
Anyway, organised protest is what this is aimed at. It's a bit like the anti-strike was as well doing that road. In fact, the people doing that road really don't understand how much of their rights have been taken away. And I would recommend that the people doing that road start paying attention to a guy called George Minipot.
Yeah.
The journalist. He used to, I don't know if he still writes for the Guardian. I'm not that impressed with the Guardian. I'm not impressed with the mainstream press down there at all. The press down there seems to be about and maintaining the status quo. Although it's moving, our 30 years of Murdoch, its influence, it's moved the whole UK to the right, including the Labour Party. And we'll get to Starmer and his Maggie stuff in a minute. I'll let you get into that. But they say the people in England really don't understand the way they're being oppressed. But here in Scotland, the oppression's a wee bit different because some of the bills, like the Public Order Act, that doesn't apply here in Scotland. Well, the anti-strike laws, there's just been an amendment put in place in the Lords that means that won't apply here in Scotland either, or in Wales. So, but here in Scotland, we're being oppressed in a different way. Our democracy is being denied. The democratic votes of the Scottish people are being denied. Our parliament to be undermined, and our voices are to be shut down internationally. You know, that's a different form of oppression. Now, when the Supreme Court gave its ruling on the powers of Holyrood, it stated that the people weren't oppressed. Well, I'm afraid that's changed, Supreme Court. And you were part of it, Supreme Court, but denying the democratic will of the Scottish people in the first place. Absolutely. Well, technically speaking, they didn't, of course. What they said was there's power in the ballot box. And it was wise of the UK not to allow you, Scotland, to exercise the power of the ballot box because there's power in the ballot box.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks very much. And Thomas, give me a bell when the show is finished, Thomas.
Incidentally,
David, before we move on, just you know, folks, Thomas is selling the CDs and he's contributing some of the money for the CD sales to the show in order that we can make contributions to the food bank.
Fantastic! I didn't know about that. Right?
Okay. He told me about it in Edinburgh, and I forgot to mention it, Thomas. I'm sorry, miss all me, but I'm such a busy fella, as you know. Right,
incidentally, the country I was on about, I've just looked up, was the Republic of Armenia.
I remember right, David. What they did was they run a what they call a running protest, and what they did was they staged gathering points, and there would be people at that gathering point. And each time they go there, the gathering was bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until, as you say, the police were swamped. They just went, fuck it.
They picked him up, they took him into prison, and he was there for a few days, and eventually, for no reason, he got released. And then next thing you heard was that the president they were trying to get rid of had resigned, and that was you know. So it was a good story. It was and it was on Al Jazeera. So if there's any catch up on Al Jazeera, I would look it up. It was good, a very, very good story. Anyway, right.
Right, let's move on to Starmer and him putting on Maggie's clothes this week. You want to get into it? Just made me sick.
Well, basically what he's talking about is that he wants Britain to become a place of home ownership, right? And if you look back at what Maggie Thatcher did, she used exactly the same words. She wanted Britain to become the place of home ownership.
But it's how you put it.
It was he said under Labour government, Britain will become a place of home ownership.
What he said was he wanted the Labour Party to become the party of home ownership. That's right. What Maggie said.
Yes.
So I want to rewind this to when he won that bloody election to the leader of the Labour Party. Who, on the run into that, he wanted the Labour Party to be the party of the people. Afterwards, he said, no, we're the party of the working people. Now he's moved it to we're the party of the middle class. And in a couple of years, he's went further and further right and reneged on every bloody thing he's said.
Well, this is a preamble to the council elections that are taking place this week. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to capture the middle by doing that. But the middle are ever so slightly right wing in England, right? And David. There are people that support Labour and are left wing in England, right? So, but the what he's doing is he's trying to capture a slightly right wing population. That's all.
What do you mean? Is he's trying to get his ones in the middle class gammons
that voted Tory?
But, you know, it's interesting. I was watching a video earlier about England, and England being described by Andrew Marr as being he didn't quite use the term regressionist, but what he says is there's a whole raft of people down there that grew up in stories of conquering places, and, you know, and a history of having to beat up people. You know, he talked about the Vikings, the Norse, the Danes, the French, the Spanish, the Germans.
Can I tell you which is one of the oldest lies down in England, right? You've all heard of the Battle of Hastings, haven't you? Right? Well, a mate of mine lived just along the beach for that, right? So we went along there to have a look, and he said, "Do you want to know something? It's supposed to have been a huge battle called the Battle of Hastings here, right? But we haven't found so much as one arrowhead in that area. So the Battle of Hastings did not happen in Hastings."
No, it happened a few just the other side. I'm sure they can find it if they're looking for it. I mean, the Maya tapestry is depicting something.
Yeah,
you know,
seriously. What I think to actually, but you know, it's obviously the French who won the battle, as it were, would have rewritten history for somewhere else, but maybe they did come ashore at Hastings or just along the beach from it, you know. So,
but what Andrew Marr's point was that they're ever so let's put it this way, they're that used to combative attitudes towards everything.
Yeah.
You know, and that explains the setup of the House of Commons and things like that. But Starmer moving further and further to the right every time he makes an appearance. Yeah. And it's quite clear that we now have a situation like America, where we have a two-party system, and actually the parties are not competing against each other; they're just continuity.
Yeah, they have like a hierarchy that battles and keeps the people thinking that they're against each other.
Aye, that's the pantomime in the Commons. But really,
you'll see them blooming shaking hands with each other. You know what I mean? So
no, but when you get right into it, it's basically the one party, the one establishment, one state. This is just a charade for the people, and the veneer of democracy. But I mean, Starmer's a right shocker. But I mean, if we look at the people that vote in place at the top of the Labour Party, they're all part of that American, what do you call it, society, which actually is trying to streamline our politics into the American system.
Yeah.
And you've got the corporate media helping there, you know.
Yeah.
But if we look at Murdoch's history, 30 years he's been involved in UK politics, and for 30 years we've been further and further to the right. It's become an authoritarian society, which is pretty well scary.
Doesn't he still own part of Fox?
Yeah, I think so, aye.
Yeah, well, Fox is the Republican Party.
The one that's sued by the polling companies, that's right. Sued by the electoral companies that provide the counting machines in America.
Yeah.
You know, they've just lost a monumental battle and they've got two more coming out. It could very well, he could end up skint because of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it up, guys. I enjoy your show. If King Charles is the King of the UK, why is he referred to as the King of England by a lot of people? Because he is the King of England.
Yeah.
It's a fair one. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Spike. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
brothers.
But Spike, he is predominantly the King of England. Here in Scotland, he's a selected head of state. We have the right to depose him if we so choose. Yeah. In fact, we get right doing tape. We should be deposing the bugger right now.
Well, a nice wee referendum that we're allowed.
Referendum.
And honestly, it would just sort the thing out, because, you know, even the threat of holding a referendum on the monarchy.
That's why I was surprised the press missed it when Holmes had done it.
Yeah,
I bet you Buckingham Palace didn't miss it.
Yeah.
You know, and when Holmes was down there for the coronation and the newly bonneted bottom comes along, maybe you should just remind them, I'm a fucking Republican.
Can I just make a wee point on that, right?
Stop. No.
Whoa. Stop crying about the stone. That's not the real stone. The real stone never left Scotland, ever. I don't know where it is, but I know it didn't leave Scotland because of the history around the stone. When Robert the Bruce did the battle for independence, right, the Irish helped out, and what happened was he got a piece broken off of the Stone of Destiny and given to Ireland, obviously along with other things, right? But the most important thing is that was after Edward Longshanks had taken what he thought was a stone from Scone Palace. So therefore, we can tell you definitely by history that is not the real stone. And plus, we don't need a stone because at the end of the day, we don't need a monarchy. So therefore, let's just have a referendum right now and get shot of the bastard. Right? Simple as that. You know.
Scotland ran for the best part of 15, 17 years without anybody on the throne of Scotland. And that was 1880, 1707. So,
he heard it in a pub in Glasgow. Oh, well, they probably had a drink before they took it away with them. Stop crying for it, guys.
Before we get to big years, I had a big story last week. 132,000 civil servants by 132 government departments walk out on strike. That was Friday.
Yeah.
Very little press coverage of it.
Yeah.
It's almost as if public protest, even strike action, is to be suppressed.
If you haven't got your passport by now, you're no getting it. It's as simple as that, right? So I've got news for you.
I mean, let's talk a wee bit about the cuckoos in the nest and what we're going to get with Starmer's continuity government. Do you think Starmer's going to reform the boundaries back to where they were?
No.
Do you think Starmer's going to take away voter ID?
Do you think Starmer's going to rework the election of the chief executive officer or the chairman of the BBC? Is he fucked?
Oh, let me go to Richard Sharp yet. I'll go with that muppet. That's how consequential he is.
You know, do you think Sir Comrade Starmer is going to do anything? No, because Blair didn't do anything really, right?
No, they never changed nothing.
We're all looking at Blair. We're going, thank goodness for that. Now we'll see all the Maggies and John Major stuff all reversed. Nothing was reversed.
I mean, listen, we'll get Starmer telling us right now that he'll reform the anti-strike laws. I have tweaked. But he'll not be ready yet.
Yeah, definitely.
Starmer telling us that that he will stand up for our right to protest. Do you think he'll change the Public Order Act? No. No. So that means you and I, people with small profiles, David, our very thoughts could see us land in jail if we were in England.
I don't give a shit. I'm an old guy. I feel sorry for you. You're fucked. But me, I'm okay. Jail for me is like a quiet time where I can reflect on my past and all the rest of it, right? And I get a proper meal and they take care of me and all the rest of it, right? But you're fucked.
Why?
Because you're younger than me.
What? Some meals a day keep warm and telly. Hey, I don't watch telly, but they tell me most of these places have got libraries in them. Well, I'll be fine. But you imagine that, David. We're in England right now. I mean, some of the stuff we talk about, we can see is in okay. You know, just for having a laugh and speculating on the SNP frontman being a hitman.
Mark Simpson used to say, "Eat my shorts." Well, guys, eat my shorts. All right, there you go.
Right, anyway, of course, Friday also sees the resignation of the intent to resign of Richard Sharp. He tells us he'll step down once a new chairman has been selected. Is that reminiscent of Bojo?
No, but if any of you have been involved in any corporate affairs whatsoever, you know fine well that somebody that in that sort of level doesn't resign. They're given the choice. They're saying, resign before we sack you. That's what happens, because people in that kind of position, They hold a position of authority and power, and they feel that they are impregnable as far as that's concerned, until they are not. And at that point, they're given the choice, and then they resign. And when in actual fact, they have in fact been sacked, right? So.
And Margaret's of the impression that Sir Rodney Stormtrooper is worse than the Tories. He is the bloody Tories. Right. So the guy that sets up a dodgy deal for Bojo gets the bullet. That's the headline, folks.
Yeah.
You know, well, dressed up all nice in nice language, of course, and given that he's claiming he's done nothing wrong. So, but John Nicholson, the SNP, sorted this one out on TV, on Gammon TV, I think it was, when the presenter, no, it wasn't at BBC actually, BBC defending him and saying, you know, he doesn't need to stand in, he doesn't need to resign, he's done nothing wrong. And of course, John says to the guy, well, if he's not done nothing wrong, what's he resigning for?
No. Can you tell me something? It's maybe something that's lacking in my education. What's the score with calling people gammons? Right? I quite like a wee bit of gammon on a sandwich. You know what I mean? Well, a wee bit of coleslaw and all the rest of it. That makes a really tasty sandwich, right?
I think it's the term gammon for the masses.
Ah, right, okay.
You know, cuts of meat for the masses.
And another one I saw this morning was this thing about, you know, woke and you know, that sort of stuff. And I'm going, hang on a second, what you're describing there, I've been that for years. I've been a socialist for years.
The term woke started up in America to describe people who were aware of the situation, aware of what was going on around about them. It was then taken as a derogatory term when the people who were aware of what was going on around about them were telling people who'd fallen for populist narratives, like the sort of thing we got for Bojo and Trump. They then turned the term woke to mean something derogatory as opposed to a description of somebody who's enlightened and awake.
Is that why the Americans consider anything socialist to be actually communist?
Aye, no, it's a matter of how compressed it is, you know what I mean?
And they're still fucking scared of Reds under their beds.
Aye, absolutely mental. Let's move on to Lugs, big ears. Apparently he wants the people to shout out an exclamation of a, what do they call it? Well, he wants the people to shout out and pledge an allegiance to him.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So the papers have been running polls on this.
What's the phrase that goes directly behind that for anybody that's got half a brain is, I get to fuck. You know?
It's quite spectacular. Now up here in Scotland, the polls have consistently shown that 85% is really don't give a shite.
Yeah.
But the UK press, after it was announced that Charles wants everybody to swear or give a great cry of allegiance to him, not to the institution that's the monarchy, but to him, on the day of his coronation. So the papers have been running polls asking if the people will be swearing allegiance to Charles when he gets the bonnet put in his napper. 85% UK wide said that'll be fucking right.
I've got a silly wee theory that goes on, right? I reckon certain people in high office do want Scotland to leave the Union, right? And my thought is this, that they are doing these things, they're throwing it in our face to the extent that we all go, oh, I feel sick. I mean, you know, have you seen any of the Marks and Spencer's blooming adverts that's on blooming social media?
No.
That's vomit-inducing stuff. It really is, honestly.
Okay.
Bedspreads. You like comfy, like tops that you can put on. You know, they're made of fluffy material, but they've got a Union Jack. Oh, bloody hell, man! It's awful. And it's like obviously it's got a crown on it. And all that. Oh, blooming heck, man!
Here we've got I think we might have the definitive on gammons. Charles Dickinson invented gammons to describe large, self-satisfied, patriotic, middle-aged, selfish, corrupt types. You know, like modern-day Tories.
In actual fact, that's really good. That really is awfully good.
But I mean, to me, what the monarchy stands for, David, is the very pinnacle of the class system and corruption in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, they are the very, very pinnacle of sycophantic behaviour. You know, bow down to the superiority of the guy that stole everything you fucking own.
It's a bit like going back to the Dickens thing, Tom Brown's School Days, right? It's a bit like the bully in that story, where what he did was it gathered all the lads round about us. So what are you telling me, shoes for?
Don't start getting into all that. These people out here think we're fucking working class and one among of the people. You don't want to know we're actually tops, kid, no, do you? Well educated, rather middle class chappies. Yeah, I only joke. I know, I get where you're coming from, but I mean, that monarchy thing just shows you how backwards the people of England are, and to an extent the people here in Scotland.
Yeah.
The 15% of them that believe in it. You know, absolute mind benders. Any chance of a refill, Madam Director? Thank you very much.
Dragon.
Hello, darling.
Hi, honey.
Anyway, so we've already got our chants of allegiance ready for Saturday, so we're not going to be in Glasgow Green, so I suggest we all scream an allegiance to the King. Not my King!
Yeah. Or take a bit of paper and a marker pen.
Oh, don't write on it until you get somewhere where you go.
Yeah, write on it when you're ready to actually join the crowd. Do not write on it.
With bits of paper and pens. They don't like that. You might be going to write.
The one thing I still can't figure out is why and how is that against the law?
I don't know, but they're doing it anyway.
No, that is.
We were talking about a Public Order Act earlier. People don't really understand how serious this is to the UK's democratic systems, anti-freedom of speech. I watched journalists being arrested covering climate protesters. They weren't protesting, they were just covering it. Always huckled the journalists because they didn't want any coverage of this bloody protest. You know. Wow.
Yeah.
But you see, Charles, this just shows you how egotistic the spanner is.
Yeah.
And how long he's been in his gilded cage. He wants the British people to swear allegiance to him personally. Not even the institution of monarchy, but him personally.
Yeah.
Mental. Absolute mental, David.
Yeah, we had a similar situation, if you remember, round about the time of the massacre of Glencoe, where certain tribal leaders at the time had to go to, was it Argyll, to swear allegiance to the king at that time. Yeah, I'm seeming to remember, and in history there was a situation where the clan leaders had to go to Argyll to swear allegiance to the king. We are not in the Middle Ages. This is the 21st century, and I'll tell you what, we just need to blooming stand up and shout, "Fuck off!" Right? Because that's what's needed. That's what's needed to actually put the thing back in place and make people realise that we will not be treated in this way.
Well, as I say, he wants people to pay homage to him.
Yeah, well, no chance. Not going to happen.
To swear allegiance to him.
Yeah.
Oh no, watch the sycophants down that road there. There'll be a lot of press, there'll be big crowds all reading off a sign saying, "I swear allegiance to so-and-so."
Yeah.
You know, whereas up here, thank you, Madam Director, whereas up here in Glasgow Green, we all be singing "Not My King." And I have to say, I was quite impressed at the Scottish Cup final yesterday.
What, is football a thing in Scotland, is it?
Aye. So the Scottish Cup semi-final yesterday, apparently it was two Glasgow.
I keep telling people to get into curling. At least in that international curling team wins.
Aye. But,
you know, if we all got behind that, wow. You know?
Anyway, apparently the two Glasgow football teams were playing football yesterday, and one of them tends to lean up with me into the Republican side of things, so that was shout. They were all singing "Stick the Coronation Up Your Arse."
That's good. No, seriously, that is good.
Oh, you can pick it up on social media, David. It's out there. Yeah. People are videoing it, obviously, but on social media.
Yeah. But do you not? But do
I'm
you not feel that the reason for that was that the other side were saying you stick your independence up your arse?
probably.
Yeah. You know, if you want to give people something to fight, give them something opposite. Yeah.
Yep.
What we need to do is we need to actually have people who really feel, you know, King Charles is not my king. Plus, fact, King Charles III, right? The actual King Charles III that should have been was the pretender, Bonnie Prince Charlie.
Aye.
You know, and had he won, he wouldn't have been. In actual fact, he wouldn't have been in the frame for a monarchy. Yeah.
No, but what I'm going to see here is to go back to Charles himself and how egotistic he is. He's going to be the first monarch since Charles II to have a coin minted with him wearing a crown.
I know. Yeah. It's gut wrenching. It is, honestly. It's just gut wrenching.
It's a dark ages.
Yeah.
When we think this one through, Tony Benn had this one down to part. You know, the royalty and people in power. What they did was they stole what belonged to the people, the land, surrounded themselves with sycophants, and then continued to expand stealing the land.
Who was in the wrong? Was it the actual person that stood there and went, right, I'm king? Or was it the blooming idiot sycophants that decided they were going to back him?
The idiot sycophants that decided they were going to back him, of course. Because without idiot sycophants, everybody would still have common purpose, common cause, common land, common law. You know. But
are we wrong? Are we wrong in thinking this way? Please, in the comments, tell us if you think we're wrong in thinking this way.
And if you look at the accumulated wealth of that family, when the empire and all that existed, it's all stolen.
Yeah, that's right.
The history of the family starts off in theft.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's just go back to something as stupid as that movie with which the Australian get, Braveheart. That's right. They were talking about if the Scottish landowners, Scottish lairds, did as they were told, they were given properties, they were given land in England, right? Whose land did they take in England?
Exactly. Whose land did they steal in England?
Because there must have been some people that lived there.
Common land.
You know what I mean? So it's been done both ways. Yeah.
You're right, back. They get the history of it. So the richest, the guy that had the biggest plot of land in an area once upon a time decided that he was the big cheese, and the way he was going to consolidate that was get people around the boom to be his bully boys, and then they moved out, stealing everybody else's clump of land as they went.
Yeah.
And that's the royal family. That's the history of kings. There you go.
So it all comes from the wild, wild west, as they say. You look at any old Western movies, you'll see the same thing being carried out in America.
I see things going on right now, David, that really scare the shit out of me.
I know, man.
Okay, Bill's been introduced. Were introduced in 1930s Germany.
Yeah.
We're seeing the persecution of people who were basically persecuted during that period of time and all. But let's move on and let's have a look at the history of the UK and some of the nasties, shall we? I mean, if we look at America and reservations to avoid problems, as we stole the North American continent for the Native Americans. And let's have a look at some of the things that were done in Africa.
Yeah. And Australia.
Concentration camps.
Yeah.
And of course the persecution of the Aborigines in Australia.
Yeah.
Wow. And I see the sort of comparisons with what's going on today with the authoritarian moves that are being made down that road. And if anybody thinks Starmer's going to re-liberate and repatriate our democracy to us, the people, you're right. It's constitution unity government. What worries me is the things that were done down that road as our voices get louder and louder and louder, as more and more elderly die off, and as the younger people come through, as we know, they're generally pro-independence. How far are they going to go?
I don't think very far.
No, I don't, because the social contract between the peoples would turn on them together.
Yeah.
You know, but the control is the name of the game. And that's the whole idea of these public. That's the idea of public order acts and things like that.
Well, looking at that cartoon that was considered as being anti-Semitic, that was basically the noose that was put around Corbyn's neck. If you look at that, it's nothing to do with anti-Semitism, but the actual point it made was dead right. It was surrounded by bankers, some of which were Christian, some of which were not religious at all, but they were American bankers, right? And the table was sat on top of the backs of the people. And the point was, if the people stand up, just stand up, then for all these people that we consider as being the troublemakers across the planet, all the 1%, the elite, their time's over. It just takes for people all to stand up.
I'm going to put this one up because it's important, and it's Lorraine, and what she's saying is she's gobsmacked with authoritarian laws being introduced. It's very frightening and very frustrating watching from a country that has different values. That's correct, but as I say, a lot of these laws that they're introducing in their belief or not don't actually affect us. Yeah. They're not worried about 5 million of us for some reason.
Yeah.
But they are worried about 55 million, that melting pot down that road, and rightly so. And that's why they're stoking the differences in the peoples doing that road. Because
stoking the differences here. They're stoking the differences here.
Oh, I in the press.
They're trying to break the SNP up. They're trying to make it whereby people turn their back on the SNP. The only Scottish party that is able to get the ballot boxes out their cupboards and make it a plebiscite election and get Scotland rid of that lot. Give Westminster its P45. Boom.
As Lorraine and most of us who are reasonably well informed are looking on in bloody horror at the way society's gone here and how authoritarian it is becoming and how easily the people of England are accepting this. This is frightening. We've already seen the deliberate undermining of democracy, the denial of our democracy, the denial of the will of the people here in Scotland, and now we're seeing a draconian laws being introduced in England curtailing freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of protest. You know, and Starmer is just another one of the establishment stooges. He's continuity coming. He's made it clear austerity will stick. He's made it clear he's going after people with small votes. He's going to use the very same methods that don't work as the Tories. He's telling us to get ready for continuity government. And that's because that's what the people of England generally want. They don't want reform. And neither does the establishment, because we've seen what they did to Corbyn. He could have made it, he would have ripped up and he would have really spun it in its heat. So he was not to be allowed to get anywhere near the power.
Corbyn, in my eyes, Corbyn was not a good leader. He was Mr. Committee. That's what he was. Yeah.
But at least he spoke to the people and the interests of the people. Would the establishment allow him to do it? No. Okay. And I've already told you what Starmer's excuse is going to be when he gets in the door number 10. He's going to come in and tell us nothing can change because I've seen the books. We can't afford it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he will not last very long because the Tories have set the thing up good and proper.
Oh, to implode on him, man. Do you know, which brings me to something else. We don't have long, David, but I've got a funny feeling there will be a general election before the end of this year.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll explain my reasoning behind it. And people can either agree or disagree. But my reasoning behind it is we know at the end of this year, the Brexit, the full effects of Brexit when checks have to be in place, right? Now, we know they're going to try and kick them down the road, and they are talking about extending it to 2027. But the start of the implementation will happen. European exporters will stop sending stuff here.
Yeah.
Just not worth it. it's going to rot in the docks, or we don't get as far as
we can already see the effects of Brexit, right?
We've know the fall effects yet. And that's going to happen during Starmer's administration.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who it is that comes out and tries to blooming up Brexit. It's a blooming pile of shit. It really is. And it's like, we in Scotland seem to see it easier. Don't know why. Is it because many more in England voted for Brexit and they're trying to justify the choice they made?
I mean, don't get me wrong, the polls are starting to show that people of England regret their decision.
Yeah, but
until the political leaders are willing to address the situation.
Right, Theresa May, out of your memory, David, all right, how much advance warning did she give of the election? When it was the date of it and when she announced it? When we're talking? Can you remember how many weeks was it?
2019. She resigned, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was 16 weeks.
16 weeks.
Aye.
Right, okay. It's possible we could have an election up to and including October of this year. Aye. I certainly wouldn't see anybody doing an election, a general election, in November or December.
But the second reason why I think it will be at the end of this year is because by March, April next year, we're going to really start to see things tighten up. We'll see food price inflation fly up and things like that. And we'll see more shortages in the shelves in the supermarkets.
Yeah.
And they'll want that election before the Scots get a chance to have a look and go off of this.
Right.
And they'll want to have that election while the SNP are in turmoil.
And we're starting to, the climate's starting to warm up a bit again, right? The one thing I haven't seen, and I'll need to contact the police again regarding that, is how many excess deaths were caused due to cold climate and older people being afraid to heat their houses.
I don't think we'll get any stats until about June next year, David.
Yeah.
What we get after that crap?
We could do with those stats now.
Of course
yeah.
Of course we could, but
maybe that's another freedom of information request.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But as I say, the other reason I think there could be an early election is I think they're wanting, as you and I have already spoken about, if the SNP go backwards, then Sir Tom Devine is correct.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's gone. Bye-bye.
It's gone for a generation.
If I'm still alive in another 50 years, you can come and chat my door, but
So if the SNP go backwards, that's what Holmes's day on Saturday was all about. You're out and chatting the doors and saying, listen, what you're hearing is crap. We're here, we're fighting. We're getting in about it.
Yeah.
But as I say, this could well be your last campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Sir Tom Devine, he cracked it, and the National say at the weekend they're saying, the independence causes it death though. Well, actually, it's no. That's up to us, the people, to prove it's no. And the way to prove it's no is to get out and vote SNP and drones.
And join the SNP if you are already a member. It costs really nothing. It costs really nothing to join the SNP, and you can be a member of two political parties, right? So don't worry about that. If you are a member of another political party, still put your money behind the SNP.
And remember, folks, if you are in the diaspora across the world, you can join the SNP too.
Yes. It's not considered the same way, but still in all,
it's still a way to run the party, David.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're out there in the diaspora, and you get interested in what's going on in Scotland, the Scottish independence, spend a couple of quid each year joining the SNP and give a wee horn.
All you need to do is put in this www.snp.scot. All right. And then look at the top left-hand side of what comes up, and it's got the word donate or join. You can do both of them. There's an international...
Right, Tom Devine tried to say that independence is dead for a generation. What rubbish. It's only rubbish if the SNP don't go backwards at the next election.
Correct. Yeah. So are we going to agree with Mr. Devine, or are we going to disagree and make sure that the SNP doesn't go backwards?
Well,
Now,
you know,
I can imagine a fair few of you that's watching here do not want the SNP to go backwards, and do realise that it's the only party that's going to be able to get the ballot boxes out of their cupboards, right?
just joined the SNP. Well done, my friend.
You also have a responsibility, and I'm sorry to say that, same as I have, same as David has, in actual telling other people to join the SNP, to go and do it. Yeah? And make them realise it's over.
But as I say, this is an appeal. This is an appeal to those in the diaspora, because we're just out of our hour. But seeing you're a wee bit late, we'll let that run.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, honey, to the.
Well, as I say, if you're in the diaspora worldwide, and you really want to help us become an independent country, you can. You can join the SNP. Your dues will go into the fight.
Yeah.
You know. So they will. But as I say, this could be our last campaign.
Yeah. Any more subjects on that paper of yours, David?
Let's see what the public want to talk about. Oh, the German ambassador joining the EU ambassador and sticking it up in Westminster and inviting the Scottish government along for chats without having the monkey on the back.
Well, yeah, no, you see, that's the thing. An embassy of a particular country, that is their land, that's their country effectively, right? And they can decide who it is that comes into that piece of land and who can do or say what they want, right?
Right.
And the Germans, wow, that was wonderful.
That
For Humza to receive a dinner date to the German embassy in London, fantastic, utterly fantastic.
Yep.
And basically, that was Germany doing that to the UK Tory fascist government.
And the EU ambassador did the bloody same thing. The new membership card, folks, you'll see there's a wee yes logo on it. Now, I've seen a post coming up asking if the SNP had hijacked the yes movement. No. The SNP, this is their section of the yes movement.
Yeah.
That wee multicoloured logo and a yes.scot.
Yeah.
That's the SNP's organisation.
But also a bit of common sense here. I remember the run-up to the 2014 referendum. We had the Yes campaign. The Yes campaign was in Hope Street, right? Yep. And they were always in the back foot. And the reason they were always in the back foot is because the journalists came to the Yes campaign and asked them questions like, and what currency will Scotland use? Which was a question that could not be answered by a movement like the Yes campaign, could only be answered by a political party. So therefore, if you think that even if 4 million people in Scotland suddenly decided, oh, do you know what? I'm going to vote yes. I'm going to vote for independence at the next, there's a plebiscite election or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. You can't get it. It won't work until you've got a political party like the SNP actually getting the ballot boxes out of cupboards. You can't.
Damn it, Janet. But you were right about them going to the Yes movement in Hope Street.
He's called me Janet. I'm going to call him Fiona from there. You're right, Fiona.
Anyway, as I say, you're asking Blair Jenkins and things like that, these questions. What's interesting is, although it wasn't Blair's place to answer that question, the person whose place it was to answer that question made an arse of it. Currency was one of the problems. Instead of Alex standing and saying, "Oh, we just launched a currency. It's a big deal." Everybody else has done that.
Yeah.
No.
But
Ross had a go at that at the weekend and all.
The problem is I saw at that time was that Alex Salmond was trying to keep too much of the status quo in place. In case he frightened the bloody horses. Well, this time the horses aren't really that frightened because they realise the pound's doing poorly.
But very importantly, David, the message was all rang on the currency thing.
Yeah, I know.
as I say, the approach from the movement was all hanging on. It was all on the defensive.
Yeah.
This time, I want the movement to learn their how-to-gonies.
Yeah.
I want them to stand up and say, we're going to do the same as everybody else, you fucking spanners.
Yeah.
You know, we're no reinventing the wheel here, folks, but we need to stick with the party that will go.
Donald Duck's just put up, join BRICS.
Now you get around the applause for that.
President Lula from Brazil is now taking over from Bolsonaro, who was the idiot that was cutting down the Amazon jungle and also inviting all them blowing miners to turn it up. And they're causing a situation where the water is so poisoned that the indigenous people that live in the Amazon jungle are now getting poisoned by it.
Aye.
And Lula he's literally excluded. He's got rid of them. 20,000 miners, and he's stopping. I believe that he's on target to stop any logging going on in the Amazon jungle. Wonderful. That's what a good leader can do.
I've lost a membership, Kev. Ah, well.
What?
My 2 membership cards, obviously the same member number, but it's down through the years. And that one is for about, I think it's 12 years ago, Scotland's Future in Scotland's Hands.
Right, okay.
Put that under the logo prior to the referendum.
Mm-hmm.
And the latest one, what's it going on it? From baby steps to giant leaps. They're very inspirational. Well, for most one, I don't know. It was back a wee bit earlier again. Anyway, as I say, you're absolutely correct. We do need to have a strong political party in order to advance. Mm-hmm. We're going to end on this bit, and that is people, you've got to get this clear in your heads. If the SNP go backwards at this next election, even if it's just 1 or 2 MPs, if they go backwards at this next election, so Tom Devine is correct. And remember, folks, we're the best party. We're halfway through what they call a generation already since the last referendum. Mm-hmm. It's almost a decade since the last one. So, what Sir Tom's telling us is, if we don't get out en masse and vote for the SNP and improve their position in Westminster, not even maintain the status quo, we'll improve their position in Westminster, then we can forget it for another 10 years.
And they'll take the Scottish Water, they'll take the Scottish Health Service, they'll literally rip the guts out of Scotland, right?
And they'll take the Scottish Parliament.
Yeah, and you lot, doesn't matter how many of you suddenly decide that you're going to vote yes or whatever you're going to do, won't make a blind bit of difference.
There won't be a mechanism. They'll take away the ability of the people to express a view, except from the Westminster election.
Right, yeah.
But by that time, they'll have smashed the SNP.
Yeah.
And the Alpha Party is a good 20, 30 years away from being representative of the movement.
Yeah, the Alpha Party will make all the noises. They'll try and make all the right noises at the time.
They'll try to break into the public consciousness, and I applaud them for it. People misunderstand my take on this. Yeah. This is a time-related take, and how they go about it.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest criticism is the name of the party.
Yeah.
As a professional lorry driver, I've driven by poster after poster on the motorway that said Alpha for Independence. And all that meant to me was Scotland for independence. There was nothing there to indicate it was a political party. Mm-hmm. That's a huge mistake when you're spending that sort of money.
Yep.
I'm no critical of the party for the sake of being critical. They're our friends. We don't want to see them fail. But we're also realists. We know how long it takes for a political party to break into the public consciousness. And when we see them making a mistake on that move to breaking into the public consciousness, you've got to be critical of it because you don't want your friends to fail.
That's right.
And people actually take it wrong when I talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, my criticism is how they're going about it. These people were good campaigners for the Yes movement, and they seem to be crap at putting a campaign together to break the Alpha Party into public consciousness. Don't get me wrong, they've also got the mainstream media up against. They're not talking to Mr. Salmon. That's why he's going to take the Top TV and GB News. And prior to that, Russia Today, because even if Russia Today was still around, Top TV and GB News wouldn't give the time You know, because the states decided they wanted to shut him down. They also decided they wanted to shut Miss Sturgeon down now she's out of office. You know, that's just the way it is. You go to the bigger picture, you go to realise it's the state that's playing these games. You know, but as I say, criticism. I mean, I really do want the Alpha Party to do well. I do. But
David, you're not going to live to see that.
I know that's what I mean. I know I'm not going to live to see it. So, but at the same time, I don't want to see them making the mistakes they're making along the way. And they're actually, I mean, as James Kelly's put in his last two letters, if the Alpha Party's idea is to smash the SNP, then we can forget about it.
Yeah.
And in his second letter, he says, if the idea is to smash the SNP and usurp them as the party independence, there's a 20 or 30 year rebuild programme. Another political realist. But this guy, of course, is a psephologist. He specialises in battering into the polls, like, you know. So he has a good grasp on, you know, the way that people think in political history. I mean,
but David, all the reasons that we've got for being an independent nation right now will, over the years, disappear like blooming mist going up the glen, right? And all the kids that are, I mean, I'm talking like toddlers now, that will then become adults and then will be looking for ways to get rid of Westminster. All those arguments have disappeared, right?
And that's if we don't get behind the biggest political party here, mass participation political party here in Scotland, and that's the SNP.
Right.
Forget Labour, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
They're going to win that election in there, but they're in trouble. Because Starmer's decided that he wasn't going to go, he didn't want to be part of people, and the people still funding Labour. Labour's 4.8 million in their head. And the big backers that back the Tory party, who run the way to the Tory party, Starmer's not managed to woo them towards the Labour Party.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, he is trying by moving the Labour Party further and further to the right, but it's just not happening. So how much money Labour's going to have to fight the next election campaign? So the election's going to be tighter than what you think. Tories are going to be in the battle bus and the battle coffers than what Labour have. And because the trade unions have stopped really, and trade union members are still funding Labour really, Labour are in problems. And here in Scotland, Labour's not the answer.
Yeah.
Because you're just moving from one Tory party to the other Tory party, two cheeks of the same arse.
If anybody in Scotland votes Labour to get rid of Tory, you play with your brains in your hands. Simple as that.
Especially when Starmer he's getting us ready for continuity governance. He's telling people that he's not going to change nothing that the Tories have done. He's not going to change. He's even talking about the private sector being brought into the NHS. He's talking about the bloody same thing, privatising the NHS down that road.
Yeah. And he's certainly not going to change a thing about Brexit, is he?
No. Right, that's enough for the political broadcast on behalf of Scotland's biggest political party, because that's not what it's meant to be. But it's truth and reality, and we have to deal with realpolitik. And the realpolitik of the situation here is vote SNP or if it's after the Celts. Simple as that. So I think that just leaves us one thing left to do, Davey.
Right, well, don't forget we're going to do the subscribe thing. If you're
carry on, boy, carry on.
If you're not a subscriber, please can you subscribe to the channel, because the more subscribers gives us a lot more things, a lot more toys to play with as far as this broadcast is concerned. The next thing is, if you like the broadcast, then we are the Two Davies. If you didn't like the broadcast, we are the party political broadcast on behalf of the UK Tory, Conservative and Unionist Party, right? So you say bye-bye, guys.
Right, hold on.
What did I miss?
If you're on Facebook, you're going to share this. Give me a couple of minutes. I forgot to make it public at 10 o'clock at night last week, and that seemed to hurt things. Anyway,
right.
Just leaves one thing left today, Davey.
Bye, Davey. Bye, guys.
Join us on Thursday, 4 o'clock, folks. I'll put up a notification. Bye then.